All right, welcome to another episode of the Scripting Them podcast. In this episode, I want to cover something that is quite common on our industry actually, and some new developers actually are maybe coming from other industries or just seeing how all developers use this method to improve either their role or their salary, and they just wonder whether this is the right way of jumping, especially taking big jumps on salary ranges, essentially. And that is the question of whether you should resign and change jobs, change companies, essentially, if what you want is a raise in your salary. The short answer to this is yes, you should. But there is a longer explanation, so let me explain. I've been in the industry for the past 20 years. So I've had my share of jumping from company to company, getting better offers from others. But what I've always tried to do, and what I always try to advise to my colleagues as well, is if you're unhappy with your current situation, if you're unhappy with your current salary or maybe your role or whatever situation is around your day-to-day job that you just makes you not want to do it anymore, the first thing that you should do is bring it up, either to your manager, to your project manager, to their manager if they are not paying attention to you, whatever. But you should raise your hand and say, I'm unhappy. Because, by all means, feel free to just quit and get a new job. But if the problem that you're trying to solve is solvable, then you're just literally quitting the situation and trying to find a brand new place. Now, when you join a new company, you're just making a bet. You're making a bet on a new company, on a new team, on a new boss, on a new manager, from maybe 10, 15 minutes or a little bit more based on how many interviews you had for that job. But that's it. You don't really know the company culture in detail. You don't really know how the team works together and how you'll fit within that team. You're just making a bet because you're just fed up with your current situation. However, if all that bothers you from your current situation is something that could potentially be solvable by raising your hand and speaking up, then, that might also be a good idea, because you're already in a place where you know your colleagues, you know your environment, and they know you. And if you've been in there for a while, maybe, others would not be surprised if you said, I've been here for a while. I like a raise, please. Or I would like more responsibility. I would like another role. I would like to take care of or leading my own team. These are all things that you as a developer are more than entitled to ask for. Clearly, you can't really demand such things, but because that's never how you do it, you just have a conversation with whoever's in charge, and through dialogue, through well-placed reasons, you can definitely make a case for you and make a case for whatever you're trying to achieve. If still that doesn't happen, they don't give it to you, or they just say that they don't agree with you, then definitely, by all means, go ahead, quit, get another job, and try again, and try to see if you get lucky this time, or if the company is better or not than the previous one. That is definitely something you can do. But remember, before you actually take the leap, before you actually leave a group of people that you might like working with simply because of one particular situation, raise your hand, speak up, and don't be afraid to ask for what you believe is owed to you. And again, this is not about demanding. This is not about, kicking in the door and saying, I want to raise or I'm leaving. But it's definitely about clearly stating your case and putting all the cards on the table and saying, I've been here for a while, I've been doing this and that. The You can even bring up the inflation if you want to. In some countries, this is actually very relevant. In some countries, the inflation is so high that if you don't get a raise every once in a while, then your salary is essentially worthless after a while. So these are things that, well, yes, it would be great if they would come directly from above you, from your manager or the CEO or whoever, and they would, out of the blue, recognize your worth to the company, and they will give you that raise. They will give you that extra responsibility or whatever you're looking for. It is perfectly fine that you go after it for yourself, that you go and ask for it. Just use the quitting card as the last result. And again, it shouldn't be give it to me or I'll quit. In my experience and in my opinion, my humble opinion is, if you actually say that you're going to quit, then be ready to follow through. Because that's a threat that if you use it as such, it will only work once. Next time you play that card, they'll just let you go. And you might find yourself without a backup. So my recommendation would be, if you're actually ready to quit, if you've actually expended all your cards, you've done everything you could to achieve what you want to achieve, and still you haven't been able to get it, and the reasons that you're given are not enough for you, then go ahead, get another job, go through the interview process, get the offer letter, and once you're there, go to your boss and say, well, I quit now. I couldn't get what I want, you wouldn't give it to me, and I'm sure I deserve it, whether you agree with it or not. So I'm leaving, I'm going to look for it somewhere else. That's a great situation. And now what could happen there is they could perfectly say, well, that's fine, good luck. Or they could say, well, actually, we want you to stay, so here's what you want. Here's the raise that you wanted, or here's the new role that you wanted. And then that it'll be up to you to decide whether you actually want to stay in a company that only gives you what you want after you decide to leave, or if you just want to, place the bet on the new company. You're still in time if you haven't really signed anything with the new company. Now, keep that in mind, that this is the last step, the last resort. And you have to be ready to say, no, actually, you know what? I'm leaving because I have a better offer. I want to look for something new or whatever. But you have to be ready to cut that cord and say bye. If you're not, then you always depend on that company, and they'll know you're just too afraid to leave, and this situation might happen again in the future. The quitting card is one that is, I see it as an all or nothing kind of thing. If you're gonna quit, if you say you're gonna quit, you have to be ready to do it. And in my experience, 99% of the time, you will do it if you do it right. Because if you literally say I'll quit and then they tell you to just leave and you don't, if you try to, bluff and they call your bluff, then you have no way of improving in that job anymore. They'll don't take you serious anymore. So that's one thing that you should never do. Playing that card that way as a bluff, not a great option. The only way to play this card is when you're actually ready to go ahead and do it. Make the move, leave the company, get another job. You should actually have the second job or the backup job already in place, already lined up. Otherwise, you might find yourself looking for a job that, for a few months. So if that's the case, also make sure that you have savings, that you have enough resources to make do without an actual job paying your bills. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you're unhappy with your current situation, one, don't make a hot-headed decision. don't just get mad at whatever your situation is and just go, I'll quit and just get up and leave. Never do that. If you're going to decide if you want to quit, if you're going to decide to quit, then do it with a cool head. Make a plan for it. Make sure you have a backup plan. Make sure you have a backup job. And then once you're ready, go to your manager and quit. But just know that this is also a very common way for developers to move from one salary range to the other, and even from one set of responsibilities or one role to the other. Sometimes it's harder to grow within your own company, within the company you've been at for a while, than to just start over with that base in some places. Also, if you start over with that base, everything from that moment on it should go up. So that's also something, to your advantage. If you're been in the same job for a while and you manage to get to get that promotion or to get that raise, then asking for the new one in a few months, in a few years, it's going to be harder than just asking for the first time in a new job. It's kind of how it is, sadly. So that's it. This is a very short episode today. I just wanted to cover this particular strategy, if you will, quitting to increase your salary or to get a new role or to get a promotion. It is definitely a common tactic. It is common in our industry. Just remember that if you're going to do it, 1, don't decide to do it on a hot head. 2, if you decide to do it after all, make sure you have the follow-up job already lined up. And 3, once you say I quit in front of your manager, make sure that you're ready for it. Make sure that you're ready to follow through. And that's it. That's the episode for today. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one. And that was it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to rate the podcast in your favorite podcasting app so that it can reach more developers. In the meantime, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter or X, as people call it, just look for me at DeleteMan123. And that's it. Thank you, and catch you on the next one.